Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. I am your host, Rob Z. This platform was created for you to find those breakthroughs in your life that you need, right? We all reach places in our life that is a plateau. We get stuck in these spots and we need inspiration. We need faith. We need courage. We need strength to break through those ceilings in our lives. So I love to have people on this podcast who have found breakthrough, who have gotten unstuck, to give you real life examples that it's happened for them and it can also happen for you. So if you're feeling stuck, use this platform as power, as motivation to know that you can do it, to keep moving forward no matter what. Today, I have an amazing guest on the podcast, Desiree Cruz, a dedicated wife and mother of 3 beautiful girls. She has a passion for women's empowerment and loves exploring different cultures and food from around the world. She is the co-owner of Merge Worldwide with her husband, Jesse, where they host live events for entrepreneurs from all over the country. In Merge Worldwide, they explore the power of combining community, networking, travel, and personal development. And Desiree is just incredible. I love her spirit and her energy and what she brings to everything that she does in her life and her business. So Desiree, thank you so much for being a part of the Unstuck movement.
Thank you, Rob. I'm so excited to be here, and I just love supporting you and lifting you, and same to you, man. I love your spirit. I love your values. I love your energy. I love all of it. So I can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Thank you so much. So we love to kick these episodes off with a question. You know, as you know, I'm sure you ask great questions and you get great answers in your life, and those answers lead you to breakthrough. So I want to ask you a question that will spark this unstuck story. What happens and what has happened to you when you tried to walk in your feelings and in your purpose at the same time? And how does that question play into you getting unstuck?
It's such a good question, isn't it?
Amazing.
Yeah. So what I found is that you cannot walk in your feelings and in purpose at the same time. Those two things cannot coexist at the same time. It doesn't happen, because what happens is if you try to do that, there's a lot of things that happen that control your feelings, and then you get stuck in your head and you get overwhelmed by fear, and you start questioning yourself and you start doubting things. And now all of a sudden now you're questioning your faith. And when you're walking in the feelings and trying to live out your purpose all at the same time, it can be a spiritual warfare. It really can. So I've learned throughout the journey of having our business that those two cannot coexist at the same time. They just can't. Most people don't know this about our story. So Jesse and I own Merge Worldwide. We run speaker competitions all over the world because we've now gone abroad. And we host retreats all over the world. And now I'm doing Warrior Women, which is also global. But most people don't know that we were running these speaker competitions, and my husband was out there telling his story and healing and getting on the microphone and sharing. And I was kind of in the back. I enjoyed being in the back. I didn't want the microphone in front of me. Actually, I would tell him, please do not put the microphone in front of me. I was running the events. I was coordinating the events. I was the event planner. I was doing all the emailing and all the swags and all the scheduling and the itinerary and stuff. And I really liked being back there. But what I realized is the reasoning, when I had to actually uncover that, and we'll get into that, but the reasoning is because I was stuck in my feelings. I was super stuck in my feelings. And I was hosting these events with my husband and watching him learn and watching him grow, watching him be in his purpose and walk in his purpose. And I knew that this is where we were supposed to be, but I still wasn't ready. I still wasn't ready to share my story. And it's very ironic because the whole thing that we are doing is talking about how your story matters, right? So I had no problem telling everybody that. I had no problem telling everybody that your story matters. And I knew that my story mattered. I just was not ready because I was so stuck in my feelings. I was worried. I was fearful. I was doubtful. I was shameful. I kept myself guarded. I armored myself completely. I was vulnerable, but I was vulnerable to a point where I was comfortable. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't let you in too far. And I say this now because I've grown. I would actually be the person that would say, so much about you all at once is kind of red flaggy for me. I was actually that person before. And it's so strange what happens when you commit to personal development and you commit to really doing the work in yourself and learning and really looking in the mirror, like truly looking in the mirror at yourself and thinking, is this a me thing? Is this spiritual warfare? Or was I put here on purpose so that God can show me that these two things can't coexist at the same time? And I truly believe that I was placed purposely, like it's on purpose, purposely placed, divinely placed, as it's all part of the bigger plan, all part of the bigger masterpiece. So that's the way that I look at it. Through the years of doing these events with Jesse, it's funny how tables have turned, once you kind of once you do the inner work and you actually really start to figure out how can you be better, and how can you get unstuck. And I learned that was something that I had to learn, and I had to be put into the room in order for me to learn it. And he showed me every event. I started taking off armor. Every event, I started watching my husband. Every event, I would see these speakers come up on stage and they would change my life. And they were changing my life because I was so proud of them. I was so proud that they were able to stand up on that stage and talk about stuff that people don't talk about to a room full of strangers, really. And to be able to be in the room, to see them heal on stage, it's like you see people heal live. It's incredible. It's incredible what happens. If you're the kind of person who's willing to receive those things, if you're the kind of person who's ready to receive those things and to see something like that in front of you and have it hit you and have it hit your soul in a way that you can't deny that this is something that you need to work on, So that's kind of what was happening every single time. Every time I would just get hit, every time about how I should be up on there. I should be up in the front more. Jesse would always encourage me as a good husband would, right? He would always encourage me and be like, Daz, you can help so many people. And I'd be like, I'm good back here.
Yeah. Do you think so I'm just writing down notes while we're talking, and when you're ready, you're ready. It's something that I feel for myself. God prepares us for things, right? And we know when we're ready, and we also know when we're not ready. At least this is my own personal journey, my own personal experience, and I've gone through this, and I'm going through this. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that? Like when you're ready, you're ready, because you went through all those periods of time, and you could look back and regret of, I should have done it then, I should have done it here. But in all of those moments, you were growing, you were being convicted, right? You were being led to finally where you are now, being able to share. So how do you feel about that phase of like you weren't ready to do it? Jesse was ready for you to do it. Other people may have been ready for you to do it, but you weren't ready, right?
Yeah.
How did you get ready? What
I
led?
think there's both sides to that. Okay, so I hear you. I totally hear what you're saying. Like,
Yeah,
if I did it before, would I have been as impactful? I'm not sure.
right,
Because I don't feel like I was ready.
right.
But at the same time, and what I'm going to get into is that sometimes, and what I've learned through this, is that you have to be able to push and do things in fear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think fear goes away.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that when you step into things scared and you just do it anyways, even when you're not ready, that's where major breakthroughs happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel both sides of that. Like, would I have been as impactful if I would have gotten on the stage then? I'm not sure. But I do know that the breakthroughs has happened in my life within the last year in a whole different level because I have stepped into things fearful. And I have,
Yeah.
well, actually within the past 2 years,
Because that's where
doing it when you don't feel ready.
that's where the faith and the grace comes from. You're stepping
Mm-hmm.
into something, still being fearful, but having the courage to do it, and that's where God has room to move.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah. So I feel like for me, it's like I step into it when I'm not ready. And I definitely did that. And I'm going to talk about that. Only because I felt like I was being called to do it.
mm-hmm.
And that was from a little whisper one morning, and when you have those kinds of things happen, that's what I believe. I believe that he gives little whispers to you. And you're either going to listen or you're not going to listen. And I think that part of the abundance that we receive is when we're able to understand that this is a purpose. This
Yeah,
is purpose driven.
I love
And
that.
it's like up to you, are you going to do it? And are you going to do it scared? Are you going to do it anyways? Are you going to remove the feelings that are keeping you stuck? Or are you going to just do it because this is what you're called to do?
That's so good, Des, because I love it. And this is the reason we are on this podcast right now is because you were speaking at a virtual event and you were talking about your pushing your feelings aside for your purpose, right? Because your feelings will get in the way of your purpose. And yeah, when you live out of your feelings, then sometimes you feel like doing it. And sometimes you don't feel like doing it. And so you're gonna do it when you feel like it and you're not going to when you don't. But when you're doing it out of your purpose, right? And you know that God's called you to do something and you know that you're going to be helping people, it's like, man, I don't feel like it right now, but I know somebody's really going to benefit from this. And I know it's what I'm supposed to do. Not like to go, it's not like I'm supposed to do this to make money. I'm not supposed to do this to feed my ego. I'm not supposed to do this to please somebody else. Like I'm doing this because this is what God called me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
when I go back to that idea of when you're ready, God has to prepare you to be ready to step into that purpose, right? But you have to take, it's funny how the way you explained that was really good because God prepares you to step into that purpose. But in order for you to step into that purpose, you have to keep stepping outside of that fear over and over and over again, pushing your comfort zone over and over and over again. And then he gives you the grace to do it.
Yeah. And then when you do it, it's like when you've actually done it and you've actually listened and you actually stepped and you actually completed it. That's when you feel that heart overflowing, purpose-filled life, and that's man, I hope everybody feels it. I hope everybody feels it sometime in their life. Because I got to tell you, when I think about my life, like just in general, these last past years, and I give, of course, my husband a lot of credit for this because he pushed me to continue to, have faith in this. And this has been some of the best couple of years that I've had alive, just with what we've completed and what we've listened to and what we've stepped into and how we did it. And we did it well, man. And it's impacting people and it's impacting the world in a positive way. And it's just been so amazing. The journey has been so amazing.
I'm so inspired by this conversation and like so moved by it, which is why I asked you to come on, because the feelings versus purpose is so important. And I love what you and Jesse do. And Jesse talks about this also. Telling your story is where the healing comes from, right? So talk about that growth journey for you. What healing has come for you in the past couple of years, and the warrior women. Talk about that also, and how that also plays into the Unstuck journey.
Yeah. So when I was talking to you about feelings and putting purpose and feelings together, I had a moment, and it was a big moment. And I woke up in the morning. We were talking about the word legacy around the table, in my dining room table with my family. And the kids were there, and we were having conversation starters, and we're going off of the word legacy. And at that time, my kids just wrote a book with my husband. It was a kid's perspective of grief, which was so beautiful. And what happened is Jesse received a text message with this guy. He was reading their book to his son at night. It was my kid's book, and he was in a different country. And he sent Jesse a picture. And I was sitting around the table, and I was like, man, how beautiful is that? How beautiful is that? And they're not old enough to really understand like the capacity of that, right? Yeah. So I was sitting around the table, and I was like, man, what have I done? Like, I sat back and I let Jesse do his thing with his kids, and it was so beautiful because I didn't want to step in and overtake it I just wanted him to do something with his kids, and it was beautiful, right? But then I had to sit there and be like, okay, so what have I done? Do you guys even know my story? Here I am hosting speaker competitions about telling your story, and your story matters, but my own kids didn't even really know they knew some of my story, but my story is sad. My story is super sad. And my 16-year-old said to me, because I asked her, I said, do you know my story? And she goes, yeah, I know your story, Mom, but I don't want to talk about your story because your story is too sad. And I was like, oh, that was the turning point for me. And I went to bed that night, and I couldn't sleep, and I was up all night long. And I thought to myself, God, please help guide me in figuring out how I can change that. How do I change that? Yeah. How do I contribute to the legacy for my own children? How do I let them know about my story? And how do I do it so that they don't walk away feeling sad for me? Because that's not what I want my kids to walk away. So when I pass away, I do not want them to go, oh, Mom had a really sad story and she did very well. No, that's not even close to how I want to honor anybody. That's definitely not how I want to honor my fiance who passed, my daughter who passed. And so I really had to sit with that. And Rob, I'm telling you, that was one of the toughest moments, because I thought I was the best mom in the world all the way until that point. And then I realized that you could be a really great mom, but really at the end of the day, if I died tomorrow, what was I really leaving behind as far as them understanding who I was, or understanding the lessons that I want them to know from the things that I went through? Because the things that I went through were very sad, but that's not what I wanted them to take away from it. So what I did is I stayed up all night, and I was in my head, in my feelings, stuck. And then I heard God tell me, just do it. So I woke up the next morning, literally the next morning, and I called 64 women within 2 weeks. And I didn't stop calling every single person that I knew that I had connected with throughout all the networks and all the live events and all the, Jesse and I, we spent a lot of time trying to meet people. And I was very, very intentional in the last 2 years about building my table with women, right? So I've really met a lot of really everyday women who were just warriors, man. Their stories are just crazy, and they are walking around and nobody even knew that happened to them. But here they are, really good wives, really good, moms, holding really good businesses, doing amazing things in the world, but nobody even knows that any of this like crazy stuff that they had to face.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to create a book. I'm going to use our platform for women to empower everyday women who've gone through a lot of battles, but to have them have a platform so that they can share their stories, but they can leave it behind for their kids, for their families, for their loved ones, for their friends, so that they have something tangible that says, this is my story, but this is what I need you to know from the story. This is the lesson that I need you to know that I want to pass down from this story. So now every family that's in this book, Warrior Women, this is the first series. They now have a story of their mom or their grandma or their titi or any, they have that now forever. It's tangibly there forever so that they can have the story from the women and their families, and the lessons from the women's and their families. And what I learned was a couple things. I learned that most women were telling these stories at speaker competitions, but then I would say, hey, does your family know that? And they'd be like, no, this was the first time I've ever shared it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, well, let's change that. Right? People are passing away in families so frequently. And you know this, like, do you know grandma's story?
Yeah.
Right? Do you know the lessons that grandma wanted you to know from her story? And how valuable would it have been if my grandma put her story in a book and then told me the lessons that she wanted me to learn from it so that I could have it and I could pass it on?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
The beautiful part of that too is it helps grandma, just in the idea of grandma, put her story together for herself, because she may have never said it out loud. So she never put the pieces together to see what had come from the things that she'd gone through. Right.
Yes.
And that's what you and Jesse talk about, is that the healing that comes from telling your story, because it puts the puzzle pieces together and you can see the full scope of what your life meant.
Yes. And what I've learned is, like, if you don't write it down, it's really hard, or I'm sorry, it's very easy to mess it up. It's very easy to kind of like, oh, you are not really remembering as much. You forgot this one piece of it. You kind of misinterpreted when that happened. And, as you get older, that kind of is something that happens. And now the story isn't really as there as it should have been if you would have done it at an earlier stage. So I thought about that. I thought about, like, the story, like my stories that I have now and the battles that I faced. Would they have been the same if I would have told them when I was 70? I don't think it would have, because I don't think I would have put it in order, or I would have been missing some pieces. So
you would lose
the way to get out of that.
You would lose the perspective that you have now on it. When you're 70, you're going to have a different perspective on the story.
Right.
Telling it from when it's much more close to you, I think has a bigger impact. Now, telling it again in 70 and hearing how it's reframed as you get older, that's also very interesting. But telling it in the time that it's happening is really powerful.
Yeah. So it was the first time that I ever publicly talked about my story. For me, I was stuck for 38 years. Stuffing. I mean, I was just raised where, you know, a very stereotypical Italian family where you had to, you know, not be a baby, you know, you had to just kind of know that this is life. And, you know, you didn't talk about very much. You had to stuff a lot of things, you know?
Yeah.
So it took me 38 years. And when I wrote it, it was one of the best breakthroughs I've ever had for my personal journey ever. Now, we've done a lot of really cool things. I love what Jesse and I do. Our business is a dream come true. It's something we prayed about for years. But when I had that book come in the mail and how I had to step out of all of my feelings. I had never written a book. I've never led a group of women. I wasn't the woman who would say, let me lead a group of women. I just wasn't. I'd rather kick it with a bunch of guys, right? So I challenged myself so much. I had a lot of feelings because I didn't know what could happen, right? I didn't know. I knew that I was covered. And I knew that I had to get out of my feelings, because if I stayed in my feelings, this book was never going to happen. Right? Especially because I never did a book or led a group of women before. And now I'm leading women all over the country, all over the world. Now globally, it's expanding globally. And I got to tell you, I just had my call last night. So we do weekly calls. And then we write the book together and we do this together. And it's past surface level stuff. And we go in, you know, and it's such a beautiful community of women that I prayed for 2 years. And now here I am doing it, you know. And we just had the call yesterday and I'm like, man, if I would have, right, as you're on the call and as you see these women growing and as you see these women healing and as you see them reading their story, because now they've written it, we've written it. And so then we take turns reading it, and you get to see people heal live on these calls, and you get to see what happens in the group. And all of it is so soul changing. And last night I was sitting in my room, I was doing the call, and I thought to myself, because I was thinking about this podcast, and I was like, what? None of this would even be happening if I stayed in my feelings. It's crazy.
It's so true. Your story never would have gotten out. You never would have made the impact. The whole thing comes from stepping outside of that, having courage, and knowing that God called you to do it, right? And it's really, by the way, thank you for sharing all of that. It's amazing. And I just want to honor the fact that you've gone through this journey and how much of a breakthrough that has to be for you, and also for all of the other warrior women that you have on this platform, the breakthrough that has to be for them. And I always come back to this, the statement, make your mess your message, right? I come back to that a lot, because for me in my life, that means a lot to me. Because if we don't make a message out of our mess, which is finding the story in our past, like your daughter said to you, I can't tell your story, Mom, because it's just too sad. So your story was still it was kind of a mess, right? It was like a mess to them. Once you made it a message, you put the words together, you put the story together. Now they can talk about it and they can see, maybe it was sad, maybe it was a mess, but look what came from it. Look who is healed from it. And I can't think of anything else. If God puts us on this earth for a purpose, I think, one of the main purposes is we have to go through things in our life. We are going to go through things because we live in a fallen and broken world, right? So we're going to go through difficult things, but we have to get back up. We have to keep going, heal, and turn that mess, whatever we had, everybody has one, into a message, and keep telling that story. That's how we heal, and that's how other people also heal, and that's how they get the courage to tell theirs. Man, this is so good. It's so good. I think in my life of men who need to do this, including myself. Like, I've told a lot of my story, but there's still a lot more that I could tell. And there's different ways that I could tell it. But I also think of like my dad. I think of like older men, who they have it all stuffed up and they don't even know how to like get one word out. They don't know how to get like the first sentence out, right?
Right. Yeah.
They can't even reach like a comma. So being able to like encourage them to tell those stories it's everything. And you're inspiring me right now. Like, how can I do that for guys in my life to get them, help them tell their story? And I'm just going to share this because it just happened yesterday. There's a guy in my neighborhood who I've been judging for a year. He has a little dog. He walks without a leash. I thought the dog was pooping in my front yard. It turns out it wasn't his dog that was pooping, but I was mad at this guy. And he's a bit disheveled. And I confronted him about it. And I actually went and bought him little doggy bags, like the little doggy poop bags you can clean up poop with. And I handed them to him. And I was kind of perturbed, like talking to him. But man, we ended up in this conversation where he revealed to me that he was homeless for many years, that he grew up with a bad kidney disease. He's had all these kidney surgeries. He showed me his scars, that he was in the hospital for most of his childhood, and just like really just opened up his heart to me. And my whole perspective changed. And I was like, Rob, like, it was God showed me, like, you walk around and it's so easy to judge people. You don't know their stories. And once he told me his story, I was like, I love this guy. How was I so judgmental of him for an entire year? And now I'm moving out of the place that I'm in a month, and I'm not going to see him anymore. And I'm like, man, I wish I would have done this sooner. But it was just another example of God showing me, like, everybody has a story. You don't know what people have gone through. Only God can judge them. That's why only God can judge them. We're not made to judge people. So thank you for sharing all that, because you're touching my heart right now, inspiring me. That's really, really good stuff. So I want to ask, I want to ask the audience the same question I asked you. So anybody watching or listening right now, what could happen to you, right? What does happen to you when you try to walk in your feelings and your purpose at the same time? And what would it look like for you to step more into your purpose and face that fear? I challenge anybody watching and listening to do that today. Step a little bit outside of your fear, outside of your comfort zone, challenge yourself, and take yourself to that next level of what your purpose is in your life. Des, closing thoughts, what do you want to leave the audience with? Anything else you wanted to say? And also, how can they get a hold of you?
So I just want to encourage everybody, and specifically women, to find their voice and to take away the armor that we kind of put on sometimes to protect ourselves, to stay comfortable. I've learned that the best things in my life have been because I've been shedding armor, and I've been shedding that fear and really focusing and meditating and manifesting in what God's called me to do. And now I do it, and I do it with confidence. I do it as authentically me every time. And I think when we tell women to find their voice again and to share their voice and to empower women, it's like a movement you can't stop. A bunch of amazing women coming together is like it's like a fist coming at you instead of a finger. That's what I like to say. And Warrior Women 1 is out now, and Warrior Women 2 is in the making right now. So I have a whole nother set of women. We are now in the editing process, and we are going to be releasing series 2 very soon. And I cannot wait for you guys to hear these stories. You can message me on Facebook at Desiree Cruz, and then also on Instagram is dcruz742014 is my Instagram page. And I'd love to connect with anybody who's ready to tell their story and to release, heal, empower, and lift.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Des, for being a part of the Unstuck movement.
Thank you, Rob.